You would think I'll know how to start the stream by now, but I'm still struggling. Well, mainly because I moved from Windows to Linux, so everything's different now. Sorry for that, my microphone is actually, I know it sounds a bit like ASMR. It's funny, yeah, there was a delay in when the stream have started, so I have to repeat again because the context is important. The live stream just started by me saying I'm struggling, but yeah, well, that's too. But what I was talking about is the fact that I should know how to start a stream by now, but I moved from Windows to Linux, so everything is different. I'm still struggling, still getting used to all the changes. So I want to just quickly so still updating the web applications on my server. We still currently have these 4 running, including the ECG wave scoring game that I hope you already tried out. If you did, please do let me know what your score was. There's no leaderboard. I don't want to turn it into a competition. I just want to make it human centric, so you can either just put it in the comment of wherever you're hearing about listening to this. Well, it's only on YouTube currently, which, by the way, reminds me, I have to share this stream on YouTube. If I go, by the way, I have to fix those links. One of them opening in the same window. The other one, I think this one is opening in the new window, which is what I want. I'll just share this one quickly on, well, use Twitter. Well, I don't use Twitter. Many people use Twitter. And the LinkedIn one, I'll have to unfortunately go and do it in another browser. Because I don't. I keep the Windows stuff separate to join me live, Flask web publications. Yeah, the name of the video. Yeah. So I just, yeah, as you can tell, I just rearranged the terms. Yes, we're doing a synthetic EEG generated dashboard. That's the main goal at the moment. Okay, so that was posted. I can get out of there. So we're mainly aiming at replicating this one. Originally it was a tool. You can see videos of it actually running. Now it's broken. So there's also no advertisement on it. Yes, I do not expect you to see advertisement for something that is not running. You have the older YouTube videos telling you what it meant to be doing. That was a LabVIEW back end and NXG for the also National Instruments software that no one knows about. For the front end, I could not get, so I have the HTML files. They're still up and running. They're okay. That's this HTML, but the backend LabVIEW, I could not restart it on Linux anymore. So unfortunately, that's Gonski. But we have this description. I was actually thinking taking the transcript from the video as well and popping it into one of the chat boards. So already did this. So this description, we placed it into ChatGPT in this case, and it's actually created prompts for us. So we just put a bunch of text describing what the web application is doing, what is it meant to be doing, how it should look like. And it suggested, to use Flask. Sometimes it's going for Jinx. Almost never fast API. So I think maybe that's because it's a bit newer. But Flask is okay. It's a legit, strong going project. So we might as well use that. So it's we turn those into actual prompts, and then we're trying to run them like one by one. That didn't work quite well. All right, we also had, so we have this Flask app file structures. We have our style sheet, JavaScript, index HTML, and the actual Flask application. We kept asking it like not to write code, but eventually. So we gave it all the context, and it started generating this Flask application app Python file. So that's working fine. So we can run it from here. We already spent quite a lot of time on it yesterday trying to fix some things. So it's on default port 5000. I have to, for some reason, click on it twice, and it's actually running. For some reason, it actually decided to change the spectrum into this bar chart. Before it was different, but that's okay for now. Except this one is a bit random, so we have to check it's not actually working correctly. So as you can see here, when we restart it, it's sending. So it's using Plotly. That's working okay. I'm not sure. Right, so it's getting the JSON script from there. Hopefully it's I can download it once, maybe it will become faster. Because yes, it takes about too long. That many milliseconds. For restart. No, now it's faster if I do control. It's actually working faster today. And I'm wondering if it's because of loading that CDN where the Plotly JavaScript is taken from. Anyhow, so we have this charts.js as well that ChatGPT also generated for us. That meant to update, so it has the functions for generating the plot and updating the chart. Calculate power, we actually don't use it at the moment. No, we are. So we're calculating power, but it seems wrong because the chart is always the same. It has the same parameters, but this one is changing. So you had the beta band at 100. If I restarted, it's changing. This chart haven't changed. So for example, you have that bit at the end. It's always the same. This bit at around 5:45. It's still there, but this chart is changing. There's some sort of random thing happening there. That's wrong. That shouldn't be the case. It should be deterministic at this stage, so there's no random noise in it. It's just generating actual waveforms. Where would that be in application? Yeah, it's a chip. It's a sinusoid, a frequency sweep of a cosine generator. So it should be the same every time. So I'm not sure what's happening there. Why is it changing for the same chart? But the other main thing is that we're getting this error for update parameters. It's a post request. Maybe something with the strict origin. So we're getting an error with that. We already tried troubleshooting. Let's try it again. Yeah, it's giving us generic. Yeah, that's the problem. Yes, some error handling. Just basic true false as a response. Yeah, some generic stuff. So let me just quickly digress. Well, I'm always digressing, but do it again. On the main page here, this is already live. We have inverse F noise, and this is important to us because it looks a lot like baseline EEG. Yeah, we need to update this to actually load the signal to begin with. But we can we have this drop down menu and we can select the noise type, and it will actually show us in this case a Gaussian noise, and that's what its frequency spectrum will look like. Frequency domain, we have power per frequency, dB per hertz, and frequency domain in logarithmic scale going up to 500 hertz. So this will be 110, 100. Next one should be 1000, but it's not. Just so we can see more details, you can select periodic noise. It takes some time to load, and it's something we'll have to fix probably next week. So periodic noise will have this frequency component. You can barely see it in there. We should have another for periodic noise. We should have another input for adjusting the amplitude. So then, so in this case, you can barely see it in the time domain, and you can see it clearly in the frequency domain. But that's because it's decibel. So, per hertz is essentially, so you can see it better. Later, we want to add an option to change amplitude of the sinusoid and the amount of noise. At the moment, it's just a preset examples. They will be random every time because it is noise. There's a random component to it. And inverse noise, this is how long it takes to load. I think there's just too many data points in there. And this is what it looks like. And the reason this is also called pink noise, we'll add a description for it at the bottom. We already have it somewhere, just a matter of turning it into HTML and adding it to the page. But this inverse F noise is very handy because it looks a lot like EEG baseline, and that's what its frequency response doing. There's a 3 dB drop every octave. So that's the definition of essentially pink noise. That's why it's called the inverse F. It's that reduction in frequency per octave. This is the mode not doing anything. We have to either get rid of it or actually do something useful with it, but it's a prototype at the moment and it is published, so you can check it out already. But yes, obviously needs a lot of improvement. But back to the synthetic EEG signal generator. Yeah, once we able to resolve this issue, apparently, so the main question is, yeah, GPT is not able to resolve it. Bard wasn't able to do it at all. Bard has problems with like keeping context. So it's like out of whack in terms of maybe I'm just not using it correctly. But say you can try it straight away, and let's give it 5-10 minutes. Yeah, we can. Where should we start if we're going like this way from? So this is all our combined prompts, and we give the beginning of the Flask application Python script. We can pop this in there. I think it will get really confused. Yeah, we probably don't want to ask it to generate all the code because we have the code. We'll ask it to regenerate the code. So we'll give it some context. By the way, ChatGPT is okay with this stuff, and it's generating. It can use to generate something. Yeah, I don't know about that. So it's already okay. Started generating code as well. Method post, JSON. Okay, obviously this one's missing. Is so it's using chirps as well, even though I don't think I told it to. Or did I? I probably did. Right, I did. It's right in that code. Return. So it's actually, yeah, maybe I wasn't using it correctly before. So what is it doing? Probably don't need that function in the original code anyway. Yeah, so I'm having some trouble with this when calling method from calling the post method. It's getting some errors with that. And why does this static path name? Yeah, not sure what's that all about. I mean, this code is working. I'm just trying to fix this one error, which, well, never say that. I was about to say should be simple. It's never simple. But yeah, okay. It's funny how it's taking ownership as well. It's like it's actually another LLM generated this. So why did it actually update it? No. It's the same. This is the case just to make sure the chirp, the waveform doesn't have any nans, any not available numbers in it. So it's turning essentially nans into zeros. So no, I don't know why I have updated the code as well. No, you didn't. That was in the original code. So Bard is a bit funny that way, but okay. That's HTML. Know how it will respond to it. Shouldn't just say, okay, thank you for providing this. What would you like to ask or do? Yeah, and it's always like I can help you with that. I didn't ask a question. Here's the HTML code interface, and I think it's just providing the same code. Yeah, okay. It's kind of making it its own, which is okay, fine. We all do that too, don't we? Now we have this charts JS. That's what doing some updating the charts. Again, it's saying I'll help you with that. What did you help me with? Just copy the code. We have the styles CSS, but don't really need it. I don't think that's what the problem is. Now, the big question is, so I'll give it some context for what the problem is. Why I'm getting those errors again. It's funny when I restart this, which I can by just saving the app Python script. We'll say detected changes, so it's restarting the Flask. It's restarting the Flask application. That should be in here, and I'm doing Control F5. Right, that's correct. It's not giving me any errors. It's loading the Plotly JavaScript from the CDN content delivery network, and it's loading the charts JS correctly, loading the data. That error we can just ignore. It's something to do with the icon here. I'll sort it out later. And now the problem is, so for example, if I change my window size to say 5 and hit that, I get this error. Make it larger. So I want to say that the Flask application is working correctly when loading the first time. Correctly. Okay, that's my pronunciation, isn't it? The Flask application is working correctly when loading it the first time in the browser. However, when clicking update EEG button, I get the following errors. I'm pretty sure I did get EEG correctly the first time around. So obviously we'll be able to deal with this spelling, with my spelling mistakes. That's why I like it so much. Now we get, right, so we get this one. So this where application was restarted. So we detected the change, application restarted. We get this 500 for update parameters, post request from the Flask server. So I need to copy this. Have to remember not to ever do Control C, Control Shift C. With Control C, my application stops running. Let's see what it says.
The error you're encountering is a type error caused by attempting to multiply an untype with a float. This means that delta_amplitude is none at the point where you're trying to use it in the multiplication operation. Here's a potential issue in your code. The delta_amplitude variable seems to be none, and this is causing the error.
So we've already seen this response many times yesterday. It's nothing to do with the problem. The actual problem is that the update parameters giving an internal server error. The actual problem is the following: error from the browser log. Just pop that in because that's the actual thing. It's not what
The
was
500 internal
specified.
server error status code you're encountering typically indicates a server-side error, and it's causing your browser to display an error message. To diagnose and resolve this issue, you should follow these steps. Check server logs. Look into your Flask application server logs or console where it is running. Flask usually provides detailed error messages there. Check for any exceptions or error messages related to the update_parameters root or the code within that root. Debugging in Flask. Enable Flask's debugging mode by modifying the app.run line in your app.py file as follows. This will provide more detailed error messages in your browser when an error occurs. Inspect the update_parameters root. Carefully review the code within the update_parameters root in your Flask application app.py. Make sure there are no syntax errors or logical issues in that root. This is the root where the error seems to be occurring. This will ensure that any exceptions are properly handled and return a JSON response with an error message. Dependencies and environment. Ensure that you have installed all required dependencies specified in your requirements.txt file and that your Python environment is correctly configured. URL and root configuration. Verify that the URL you are using to make the post request, http://127.0.0.1:50.
So actually one thing, we spent quite a lot of time on it yesterday. One thing is, can we, we should have it in, let's just change all this to regenerate. I don't know if I already placed it in as well, I mean, we have the code. Right, we didn't place it now because we actually placed the actual code. So let's do this too, assuming it thinks it that I already have them. I actually don't, never actually generated them.
Sure, I can provide you with an updated requirements.txt file and a readme.md template for your Flask application. Please note that the requirements.txt file should include the necessary packages for your specific application, and the readme template should be customized to your project's details. Here's an example of an updated requirements.txt file. You may need to include additional packages depending on your project's requirements. You can generate this file by running pip freeze greater than requirements.txt in your project's virtual environment. Below is a template for your readme.md file. Create and activate a virtual environment. Bash copy code python mvenv. Source venv bin activate. Install the required dependencies. Access the application in your web browser at http://localhost port 5000. Use the controls to adjust the EEG parameters, amplitude, bandwidth, window size. Click the Update EEG button to generate and display the synthetic EEG signal and its spectrum. This project is licensed under the MIT license. See the license file for details. Special thanks to the Flask community and the developers of the used libraries.
Right, is it already in the... It's not in the readme file. Is it suggesting me to have another license file? Or should this be... This is actually interesting. I didn't ask for it, but yeah, I do need whatever license. I thought I'm using mostly Creative Commons, whatever number 4, the attribution only. So use for any purposes with just attribute original creators, whatever. MIT line, that's fine. I think that's that Flask requirement to use MIT license. I'll check it later. Yeah, I'll need to add this in the code somewhere. But here it is. I'm showing it showing it to you on screen, so that should remove any eliminate any issues. I'm actually not using a virtual environment, so that's the main thing about it. I do want these requirements, a text, just so I know what should be installed, and I already have all of this installed, so it should be okay. But yes, let's pop it. Spreading it in, no, in templates, no. Yes, it should be. Sorry, I will make a spelling mistake if actually typing it, so I'll just copy paste. We'll have copy pasting. I'll keep that. I'm not actually using it. I'll have a readme. I don't know why it's MD. What's MD, if anyone knows? I don't know. That's some sort of text file. Don't really care. I'm pretty sure this bit about the license should be just in the readme file. Leave it as is. Where what's VBNet? It's actually interesting. Sorry, I'm going off a tangent. Might keep this stream short. Visual Basic.
VB.NET Visual Basic. Net is a programming language and development.
So what are they suggesting me to? Why is this Visual Basic code? It's telling me you should go. Is this a prompt? You should. How about you do it?
Absolutely. Customizing your readme.md file is essential to provide clear instructions and information about your project. Below is an extended readme.md template with placeholders for specific details that you can fill in according to your project. Create and activate a virtual environment, optional but recommended. Bash copy code Python venv. Source venv, bin, activate.
Well, I don't get why I did it. This is actually uncommon for ChatGPT to do. I think this is because we had this conversation yesterday. So as a true human, it forgot what half of the stuff we were talking about. That's normal. That's what you would expect from a human language model. Also, making up stuff is part of it as well. So don't expect any of this to be accurate. If I need a disclaimer, I should have it actually on the site. Just wrap it up quickly. Keep this one short. There's no comments in the chat. Back to this. Yeah, so we're having this. This is the main thing that we're trying to resolve. Hopefully, after we resolve that, we should be making more quicker, faster, stronger progress. So check the server logs. So I assume the server logs is that, but the log is not very useful. error messages related to update parameters. So we have that line there. We'll leave that. Yeah, we can get rid of we have, and we have this one. Yeah, because it's
The error message you provided indicates that the issue is occurring in the update underscore parameters root of your Flask application, specifically at line 83 in your app.py file. To troubleshoot and resolve the issue, we'll need to examine the code around that line. The error message suggests that there is a problem in this part of the code. The specific error message you provided earlier was. This error occurs when you're trying to perform a multiplication operation with an n type and a float. It's likely related to the generate underscore synthetic underscore EEG underscore data function, which may be returning none for one of its variables. To address this issue, you should examine the generate underscore synthetic underscore EEG underscore data function to ensure that it correctly calculates and returns the variables t and EEG underscore signal. Check for any conditions or calculations that might lead to none values. Verify that the amplitude and window underscore size variables used in the generate underscore synthetic underscore EEG underscore data function are correctly defined and have appropriate values. Implement proper error handling within the generate underscore synthetic.
I don't think the problem is how the generation of synthetic EEG data is happening, because the first time I load the page with the Flask application, the data looks correct and it's able to generate the synthetic EEG. The problem must be something else.
If the generation of synthetic EEG data appears to work correctly the first time you load the page, but you encounter an error when clicking the Update EEG button, the issue may indeed be related to the handling of the post request and the form data sent to the server when you click the button. Here are some steps you can take to investigate and potentially resolve the problem. Check form submission. Make sure that when you click the Update EEG button, the form data is correctly submitted to the update underscore parameters root. Verify that the form fields names in the HTML template match the keys used to access the data in the Flask root. Inspect JavaScript. Review the JavaScript code in your charts.js or similar file responsible for handling the form submission. Ensure that it correctly extracts the form values and sends them as a post request to the update underscore parameters root. Debugging and logging. Add print statements or console.log statements in your JavaScript code and Flask root, update underscore parameters, to print the values received from the form and to log any errors. This will help you understand what data is being sent and how it's being processed. Server-side validation. Implement server-side validation in your update underscore parameters root to ensure that the form data is valid and can be used for generating synthetic EEG data. For example, you can check if the submitted values are within acceptable ranges and handle any potential errors gracefully. Flask request object. Use Flask's request object to access and validate form data. For example, you can use request form.get parameter underscore name to retrieve form field values. CSRF protection. Ensure that you are not encountering issues related to CSRF cross-site request forgery protection. Flask WTF, for example, provides CSRF protection for forms. If you are using it, make sure it's configured correctly. Check dependencies. Verify that your application's dependencies, Flask, Python, etc., are up to date and compatible with each other.
Yeah, I think it's that cross-site request thing. This is the full response.
The provided information suggests that you encountered a 500 internal server error when making a post request to the update underscore parameters endpoint of your Flask application. This error indicates that there was an issue on the server side while processing the request. To troubleshoot and resolve the issue, you can follow these steps. Check server logs. Review the server logs or console where your Flask application is.
Yeah, this one is of interest.
CSRF protection. If your application uses CSRF protection, e.g., Flask WD CSRF protection, make sure it's configured correctly and is not causing issues with the post request. HTTP request payload. Double check the data being sent in the post request payload. Ensure that it matches the expected format and data types as defined in your Flask root.
Yeah, these two.
It's important to ensure that CSRF protection is correctly configured and that the HTTP request payload matches the expected format and data types as defined in your Flask route to avoid issues with post requests in your Flask application. Let's dive into these aspects in more detail. CSRF, cross-site request forgery, protection is a security feature that prevents malicious websites from performing actions on behalf of the user without their consent. Flask WTF, for example, provides CSRF protection for forms. Here are some steps to check and ensure CSRF protection is correctly configured. Verify CSRF token in HTML form. In your HTML template, make sure that the form includes a CSRF token field. For Flask WTF, you can add it like this: HTML copy code less than form method equals, post, action equals, update underscore parameters, greater than. Form, CSRF underscore token. Less than, other form fields do. Less than input type equals, submit, value equals, update EEG, greater than. Less than, form greater than. Verify configuration in Flask app. In your Flask application code, ensure that Flask WTF is correctly configured with your app instance. Check for exceptions. If there are issues related to CSRF protection, Flask may raise exceptions when you submit the form. Ensure that your Flask route, update underscore parameters, handles CSRF related exceptions gracefully. Testing without CSRF protection. As a debugging step, you can temporarily disable CSRF protection to see if it resolves the issue. However, do not deploy your application without CSRF protection in a production environment.
Okay, we because the site is called Bunny Chaos, we can try and turn any protection. Can I just disable? How does this protection actually works? Do I know it's can I just use the terminal in Ubuntu to turn off the CSRF protection? Also, how do I check that it's turned on to begin with?
In Flask WTF, you can enable or disable CSRF protection through configuration settings. To check whether CSRF protection is enabled or disabled and to temporarily disable it for debugging, you can use the Flask application's configuration in the terminal. Here's how you can do it. You can check if CSRF protection is enabled in your Flask application by accessing its configuration. Open a terminal and follow these steps. Navigate to the directory where your Flask application is located. Start a Python interactive shell by running the Python command. Inside the Python shell, you can access your Flask app's configuration and check the value of the WTF underscore CSRF underscore enabled configuration option. Replace your underscore app with the actual name of your Flask application file. If you want to temporarily disable CSRF protection for debugging purposes, you can do it through the Python shell as well. Open a Python interactive shell in the terminal as described above. Inside.
Okay, so can you imagine that I don't even know how to open a Python shell? Save that. Can I just do it this and test by isn't it called app? And pretty sure it's called from the right, it's in okay, this can be called Up. What should we stop it first? So it is enabled. That's good to know. Just confirm.
The error you encountered indicates that the WTF_CSRF_enabled key is not found in your Flask application's configuration. This
Right.
suggests that Flask WTF CSRF protection may not be configured in your application, or it's using a different configuration key. To resolve this issue, follow these steps. Check Flask WTF installation. Ensure that Flask WTF is installed as a dependency in your project. You can install it using pip if it's not already installed. Copy code to pip install Flask WTF. Import Flask WTF. Make sure you import Flask WTF in your Flask application file, app.py or any other file where your Flask app instance is created. The import should look like this. Initialize CSRF protection. In your Flask application file, where you create your Flask app instance, initialize CSRF protection using Flask WTF CSRF protect. Make sure that you initialize.
Okay, so now it's getting. Do I need and if not, why do I need the do I need the CSRF protection? And if not, is it possible, if I don't have it, is it possible that the post request is being blocked by it?
CSRF, cross-site request forgery, protection is a security feature designed to prevent malicious websites from making requests on behalf of a user without their consent. It's especially important for web applications that involve sensitive actions, such as making changes to a user's account, submitting forms with important data, or executing actions that require authentication.
It's not sensitive.
Whether you need CSRF protection or not depends on the nature of your web application and the potential risks associated with it. Here are some considerations. User authentication. If your web application requires users to log in or authenticate themselves, CSRF protection is crucial. Without it, malicious websites could trick users.
So if I don't have CSRF protection, is it possible that the post request being blocked? Probably not. Makes sense that it would not be blocking anything, but who knows? Still normally a button for... right, it's over there. Oh, come on, just stop.
If you do not have CSRF protection enabled in your Flask application, it is unlikely that CSRF protection itself is blocking a post request. CSRF protection is typically used to prevent cross-site request forgery attacks and does not block legitimate post requests when it is not enabled. However, if your application originally had CSRF protection enabled and you disabled it during development or testing, it's possible that some parts of your application's JavaScript code or HTML templates still expect the presence of CSRF tokens or other CSRF-related mechanisms. In such cases, you might encounter issues with post requests because the client-side code or templates are designed with CSRF protection in mind. Here are a few considerations. Client-side JavaScript. If your JavaScript code includes logic to add CSRF tokens to post requests, and CSRF protection is disabled, these tokens might not be included in the requests. Ensure that your JavaScript code is updated to handle both cases, with and without CSRF protection, appropriately. HTML templates. If your HTML templates include CSRF tokens, e.g., form, CSRF_token, and CSRF protection is disabled, these tokens might
But still, it should not block this, so it should not block it. So what's blocking this request?
The provided information indicates that you are still encountering a 500 internal server error when making a post request to the update_parameters endpoint of your Flask application. To further diagnose and resolve this issue, here are some steps you can take. Check Flask application logs. Review the logs or console output while your Flask application is running. Look for any error messages or stack traces that provide more details about the nature of the error. The logs may reveal the specific line of code or issue that is causing the 500 error. Debugging code. Add debugging statements within your Flask root, update_parameters, to log information about the incoming request and the processing steps. For example, you can use print statements or the logging module to record variable values in the flow of control within your root function. Check for exceptions. Ensure that there are no unhandled exceptions within your Flask root. Wrap your root's code in a try-except block to catch exceptions and log them with meaningful error messages. This will help you identify the source of the error. Validate input data. If your root relies on user input from the post request, validate this input to ensure it matches the expected format and data types. Handling unexpected or invalid input gracefully can prevent internal server errors. Inspect client-side code. Review the JavaScript code that sends the post request from the client side. Ensure that the data being sent matches the expected format defined in your Flask root. Check for any client-side errors or issues with constructing the request. Consider JSON response. Instead of returning a 500 error, consider returning a JSON response with an appropriate error message. This can help the client-side code better understand the nature of the error. Restart Flask application. Sometimes, internal server errors can be resolved by simply restarting the Flask application. Stop the application, then restart it to see if the issue persists. Dependency updates. Ensure that all your application's dependencies, including Flask and related libraries, are up to date. Dependency conflicts or outdated libraries can sometimes lead to internal server errors. Check configuration. Review your application's configuration settings, particularly if you are using any custom configuration options or extensions. Ensure that your configuration is consistent and correctly set up. By following these steps and carefully examining your code and application logs, you should be able to identify the specific issue that is causing the 500 internal server error and take appropriate steps to resolve it. If the issue persists or if you encounter specific error messages in your logs, feel free to provide more details and I can assist further.
It's giving me generic stuff. I don't know if I have to pay. Maybe GPT-4 will be able to solve it. I'll actually try it next week. It's the original. I'm not doing that. Can it copy this? See what bot says. This is something simple, not simple. There's some silly mistake with folders. Can you help solving this error? Can you help to solve this error? Okay. What? solve this error. You'd think it will understand the context, but no, that's okay. Yeah, this is generic stuff. In the context of the above code. Okay, I might just say bye-bye. Doesn't seem to go anywhere. We'll try GPT-4 next week. See if that's able to give us something specific. Yeah, there's an issue with that JSON object to check. Yeah, just keep banging our head against the wall, see if we can solve it. Spend the whole day yesterday on it. We might start. It seemed, by the way, to generate really good code the very first time you ask it to do anything. It's doing really useful stuff. So there could be that just my prompt has issues with it, some contradiction and stuff. Yeah, we'll have to do that. You can ask it to. Can you generate prompts from the following text? Prompts. Is that how? Is my pronunciation that bad? Yeah, if you can, hopefully it won't start generating. No,
I'll provide
no,
you with
no.
updated code for app.py, index, HTML, charts, JS, styles.css.
Didn't I ask? Okay, where's the edit? Generate prompts. Well, we don't want to summarize. We have a summary in here. Yeah, just say bye-bye, see what can we get. Probably finish in a sec. Yeah, it keeps generating a code, which is not what I was asking for, but anyhow, try again with GPT-4. Will be better. Anyway, I'll see you next time.